Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to another episode of DJ Dell's Dynamic Music Podcast, brought to you by ExtremeCarCleaning.com. Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening. My name is DJ Dell 523. We're here for another episode. I was thinking, what could we talk about today? Well, one of the things that I was thinking of, especially in light of everything that's been going on lately with the elections and everything else, is just kindness. It's a simple concept, but I think it's something that a lot of times gets overlooked, and I think it's something that we really need to get back to. When I look at the way that things have happened with the election and how it's divided people, one thing that I've noticed is that kindness has kind of gone out the window. A lot of times now, I'm finding that people are more worried about being right in their opinion than they are about being kind to one another, and even sometimes just agreeing to disagree. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about politics, for instance, or it could be about music, it could be about a favorite movie, it could be anything. A lot of times what we're seeing now is rather than just having friendly banter or even friendly debate, what's happening now is conversations tend to degrade into arguments that they don't need to, but they seem to lead into that. And a lot of times I find that nowadays people, as soon as they are confronted with an opposing view, their immediate first reaction is to assume that because someone disagrees with them, that it's got to be a fight. And just by definition, a disagreement isn't a fight. It just means that there's two differing views. And a lot of times you can really learn from different opinions. Now, it doesn't mean that one opinion is right and the other one's wrong. Sometimes that can be the case. But a lot of times it's just coming to the same conclusion from different directions. And I think a lot of times that's what we really need to look at. We need to learn the ability to get back to just being friends. And I think if one thing I've noticed from the last 4 years in the US especially has been the fact that families have been divided over their political views. People are taking one side or another, which they always have, but it hasn't, at least in my opinion, it hasn't been to the level that it is now, where not only are we differing in political views or whatever, now it's the point that I can't talk to you, or if you have a different view than me, then you're automatically the enemy. And I think we really need to get away from this. Now, one of the things that I noticed is when Biden won, one of the things that was brought up by him and by Kamala Harris was the fact that they need to unify. And even the people who didn't vote for them, he's their president too, and he wants to work with them. Now, I know people on the other side immediately wanted to claim that he was just being phony and that he didn't mean that or whatever. But I would say this, let's just go on the assumption that he is lying. Let's just say he is. Even if that was the case, I would rather have someone, even if they didn't mean it, but they still went through the actions, wanted to have people get along, as opposed to someone who is trying to divide. And I think that that's the biggest thing with Donald Trump. Now, you may not necessarily agree with him, and look, some of the things that he did, if we're being 100% honest, not everything that he did was bad. However, because of the way that he speaks, the way he presents himself, even the good things that he did oftentimes get overshadowed by his behavior. Not only that, but a lot of times too, he likes to fan the flame, and he likes to start things, but then will walk away, and then people will squabble, and then when someone points the finger and says, hey, you're the one that started this, because he didn't directly come out and say, do this, he will fall behind and say, look, hey, I didn't say it. These people are doing it, but I didn't tell them to do anything, which technically is true. But if we look at all the things that he brings up, you have to understand that there's going to be some people who can look past that when he brings up things about immigrants and illegal immigrants, I should say, and that some of them are coming across the border and, they're drug dealers and murderers and rapists and this, that, and the other. Now, most people can read between the lines and know that not every one of them is that, but even if one comes over, then you could argue that, okay, well, if this person came over legally, then they would have never been allowed to come over. The problem is, he's not banking on the rational thinkers. It's the irrational thinkers that are the ones that you have to worry about. Because when he keeps saying that, there's a certain segment of the population that will hear that, and the only thing that they will hear is rapists, murderers, thieves, drug dealers, etc. And they're going to assume that every person that's crossing that border is that, and they're going to take it that way, and they're going to take it to the extreme. Now, technically speaking, he didn't tell them to do that, but by continually bringing up that same conversation piece, after a while, there's some people who are not going to sit back and rationally think. They're just going to say, oh, well, I guess they're all bad. We got to do something about that. I don't want bad people coming in, which no one wants bad people to come in. And the reality is most of them aren't. But at the same time, because that keeps being said, there's certain people that are going to hear that and they're going to only take bits and pieces out of it and they're going to run with it. When I think about the immigration issue, part of the problem that I have is I agree that people should come over legally and they shouldn't come over illegally. However, the thing that I find very convenient about what he says when he brings that up is he doesn't bring up the whole issue. He only brings up about the people who are coming over. When in reality, if those people who are coming from Guatemala or Mexico or wherever they're coming from, if they can make 3 or 4 times the money that they're making in their homeland here, then why wouldn't they come here? Now, I don't agree with them coming over illegally, but the elephant in the room, so to speak, is the fact that he never brings up why they come over here. He never brings up the fact that, hey, we need to stop these businesses who are promoting having these people to come up in the first place. He doesn't attack them. He only attacks the character of the people who are coming over. And in reality, let's just for a second forget about the fact that they're not coming over legally. If we look past that, the reality is they're coming over here to work. And that's the only reason they're coming over here, because if there were no jobs for them to do, in reality, they wouldn't be coming over here. So to me, if you want to solve that problem, then yes, you can address the fact that there's people who are crossing the border illegally, but you also have to address the fact that there are companies out there and individual business owners who are encouraging these people to come over, and a lot of times they may even be recruiting them to come over because they know that they can pay them less money to do a job that a regular American would not do for that price. And so to me, when I look at something like Trump, and this is why I go back to the positivity angle, is if he actually said it like it was and addressed both sides, it wouldn't come off as negative. However, when he's only focusing on the people who are coming over and he's vilifying them to boot, of course they're going to be looked at poorly. But it's actually ironic too, because he's used illegals, but nobody talks about that. But I digress. My point is this: we need to stop with the negative rhetoric. Even if we want to address immigration, or we want to address voting, or whatever we want to address, we can address that without vilifying everyone. And if you're not coming at it from a negative standpoint, you're going to have a much better chance of changing people's minds and changing policy. Because the way it stands right now, when you're just taking personal attacks on people, it just doesn't look good and is very divisive. And this is the reason why I say we have to come together and we have to not only be nice to one another, we have to listen to each other, and we can't just badmouth people because we don't like what they do. If we want to change policy, fair enough, but vilifying people is not the answer. Not to mention when it comes to immigration, for example, and this is my last point on this, but I think it's important. Whenever it's brought up, he paints a picture of these bad illegal aliens coming in from southern hemisphere countries such as Guatemala, Ecuador, Mexico, wherever, somewhere in Central or South America. But the funny thing is, when you look at the immigration issue, more than half of the illegal immigrants, if you will, in the United States aren't people who are crossing the border illegally. They're people who have come over initially under legal standpoint, but then let their work visa expire or let their student visa expire and didn't leave, or came over here from Europe or whatever and just stayed. And the thing is, and this is the reason why I say that it's showing negativity, is because when he brings this up, if he said, hey, look, we need to get a handle on this, we need to take care of expired visas, whether they be work visas or student visas, as well as people crossing the border, then I think people would be more on board. The problem is he stokes the flames of just saying that the only problem is the people crossing the border down south. And the problem is, even if he were to erect that wall, which by the way still isn't, but that's neither here nor there. Even if he were to put that up, that would only solve part of the problem. The other part of the problem, as far as immigration is concerned, has nothing to do with people from Central or South America. It has to do with people who are flying in here on student visas and on work visas, etc., who are letting them expire and they're not leaving. But he's not talking about those people. And that's the problem. And I could bring race into this, but I'm not going to, because that's not the point of it. The point of the matter is, if you only pick on one section of what's going on rather than encompassing all of it, then it makes it look like you're picking on or vilifying a certain group of people. And the fact of the matter is, yes, illegal immigration is a problem, but it's not just border crossers where it's happening. They're coming in through flight too, and you need to mention those people too. And the fact that he hasn't mentioned those people makes it look like he's just picking on the Mexicans or picking on, the El Salvadorians or whoever, when in fact, even if you solve that issue, you would still have the issue of visas, which is a bigger problem than the problem of people just crossing over. Anyway, I say all that to say that you can solve many problems, but you can solve them by being positive. When you just start vilifying people and saying that they're all bad, where yes, you can agree some of them are, but most of them aren't, that's when you won't have people on your side. I guarantee you, if Trump had came in with the same policies that he had in place, but rather than just saying that certain people are bad or whatever, just said, hey, we need to clean this up, I guarantee you more people would have been on board with his plan. But he's always been divisive. He was this way before. It's just the only difference is he's in the spotlight now because obviously he's the president, whereas before he was famous, but he was still a private citizen, so he wasn't scrutinized the way he is now. So some people say, well, oh my God, he changed. He hasn't changed. It's just his life is under a microscope now, whereas before it wasn't. And I just think that moving forward, forget about these election results, because the fact is we have a new president that's going to be going in. And the only thing that we can do now as a country is we have to be positive. We need to work together. And if there's good ideas put out by Republicans, put it out. And if there's good things put out by Democrats, put it out. And you know what? I understand that you have two parties that you deal with, but at the end of the day, you claim that both parties are for the greater good of the country, then show it. And that means that if somebody comes up with a good idea, but they happen to not be from the same political party than you, it shouldn't matter, because you know what? Ultimately, you are trying to do the best for the country, so it doesn't matter who gets credit for the idea as long as the idea gets put forth. Anyway, that's all I got to say right now. I know I went on a bit of a tangent. I like talking. That's how I do things. I like to speak. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed the episode today. I hope you got a little something from it, and I'm going to be putting out some more stuff soon. We're going to be talking about some more music, because the last few episodes I put out haven't really had anything to do with music directly, so we are going to get back to some more music bios and whatnot. We're going to have fun with that as well. Until next time, I am DJ Dell 523 saying good night, and thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to DJ Dell's Dynamic Music Podcast, brought to you by ExtremeCarCleaning.com. If you enjoyed what you heard today and you want to hear more stuff from Dean and myself, feel free to check us out on YouTube. Just go to the Detailers Guild on YouTube and you can check out many of our great shows, as we're putting out stuff all the time for you, the great listeners there. And remember, if you also want to check out some of my radio shows, you can go to mixcloud.com/DJDELL523 and you can check out more than 140 shows that I have posted there. Until next time, I'm DJ Dell 523 saying thank you for listening, and make sure you check out the Detailers Guild on YouTube and like and subscribe to our page, as we would really appreciate it, and it would also let you know whenever we put up new content.